Picture this. I'm watching from my sister's porch in Portland, sipping proper coffee, none of that Keurig nonsense, the kind you percolate on a stove, when my phone buzzes. It's the security feed. There, in the bridal suite, yes, the one with the vintage clawfoot tub I refinished myself over 3 humid July weekends, stands my daughter, Becca. She's shrieking, not because of bedbugs, because Horatio, the one-eyed goat I forgot to mention, has just headbutted her ring light into oblivion. $800 of lighting equipment shattered against the original pine floors. The Wi-Fi password she demanded? 47 characters of pure gibberish I wrote on a Post-it note, which is currently inside a lobster trap, in the shed behind 300 pounds of Tom's old table saws. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this beautiful disaster began. My name is Margaret Collins, Maggie to my friends, mom to my daughter, widow to Tom, who built this place with his own 2 hands and a stubbornness I used to think was genetic. He'd always said, "Mags, if Becca ever tries to take this from you, you fight like hell. Don't give her the satisfaction of seeing you break." He died 3 years ago, sitting right where I'm sitting now, watching the tide roll in. Took his last breath with lobster boats humming in the distance. This inn, the Sea Bridge, was supposed to be our retirement. 12 rooms, 3 acres, Ocean Park, Maine. 5 years of my life, sanding and staining and learning which contractors actually show up when they say they will. Becca is 38. Rebecca Collins Price, technically, though the Price part lasted less than 2 years. She's built a life I don't understand. 2.3 million followers on something called The Gram, lifestyle influencing, which, near as I can tell, means making ordinary things, coffee, throw pillows, breakfast, look like they belong in a museum. She lives in a loft in Soho where the rent is triple my mortgage. She calls her followers her tribe, which always struck me as cultural appropriation, but she says it's marketing. The call came Tuesday morning, 9:17 a.m. I'd know that ringtone anywhere. Mo money, mo problems, which she thinks is ironic. I was in the garden, wrestling with tomato cages that Tom had bent into submission 20 years ago. "Mom," she answered before I could speak. "Amazing news. My tribe, well, 10 of us total, we're coming Friday. Brand retreat. We're launching a new line of Coastal Grandmother home goods." Coastal Grandmother. I'm the grandmother. I live on the coast. I had not been consulted. "Becca, I don't think—" "Mom, you've got all those empty rooms just sitting there. It'll be great content. Dad always wanted you to share this place." There it was, the weaponization of Tom's memory. She hadn't visited in 18 months, but she knew exactly which buttons to push. "The guest rooms aren't really set up." "Set them up. What else do you have to do out there? Watch the tide? Come on, we'll be there Friday evening. I've already posted about it. My followers are so excited to see authentic Maine life." Authentic Maine life. She said it like it was a product, something to be unboxed and monetized. "Becca, the inn isn't a hotel. It's my home." "Exactly, and we're family. That's what it's for, right? Family. Besides, you're rattling around that huge place all alone. It's not healthy. Maybe it's time to think about selling. I know a developer." I hung up. Not on purpose. My hand just let go. I stood there in the garden, phone in the dirt, tomatoes forgotten, and felt something crack open inside me. Not grief, something older, something Tom would have recognized. The same feeling I got when a student plagiarized an essay and thought I wouldn't notice. That's when Horatio headbutted me. Not hard, just enough to say, "Pay attention." I looked at that goat, one eye, bad attitude, absolutely zero tolerance for nonsense, and I smiled. "You know what, Horatio? I think you're right. They want authentic? Let's give them authentic." I spent that afternoon in Tom's study making calls. First to Jake, my handyman who'd been fixing the Sea Bridge since it was a falling down wreck. "Jake," I said, "how do you feel about some creative restoration?" He laughed that gravel road laugh of his. "Mrs. C, I've been waiting for this call since Becca's wedding. What are we thinking?" Then Marie, my neighbor who runs the Oyster Shell Inn. She'd met Becca once, described her as a lot. Pack a bag, hun. Portland has better wine than anyway. The next 48 hours were a symphony of beautiful preparation. I replaced the luxury bedding with the original 1960s cotton that feels like sandpaper. The Turkish towels? Hidden. The scratchy camp towels Tom's grandfather brought back from World War II? Artfully displayed. I set the guest wing thermostats to a cozy 62 degrees. Historic inn, I'd claim. Drafty. But the piece de resistance required timing. Thursday night, while Jake secured the final improvements, I stood in the lobby and visualized the scene. The hand-carved front desk I'd spent months restoring, the original wainscoting, the view of the cove. Perfect. Tom, I whispered to his photo behind the desk, you always said Becca needed to learn consequences. Consider this her graduate course. Before I left Friday morning, Jake helped with the final touches. We led Horatio into the bridal suite. He was surprisingly cooperative, probably sensing the mischief in the air. A bucket of oats in the corner, some strategically placed hay, and nature would take its course. I also installed the Wi-Fi router in the safe. The password, randomized every 6 hours via an app I'd discovered. Couldn't have them getting too comfortable. As I drove away from the Sea Bridge at dawn, my phone showing the camera feeds, I felt lighter than I had in years. Behind me, Horatio was investigating the clawfoot tub. Ahead of me lay Portland, Carol, and a front row seat of the show of a lifetime. Authentic Maine life, indeed. Next, we meet the tribe, the Teslas, the ring lights, and we watch what happens when a one-eyed goat meets a $4,000 camera bag. Trust me, you'll want to see this. By Friday afternoon, Carol and I were settled into her condo like we were running a military operation. Laptop open to 6 camera feeds, fresh coffee between us, the smell of her famous blueberry scones in the air. We were ready. The convoy arrived at 4:47 p.m. Becca's Tesla in front, followed by 2 Range Rovers that looked like they'd never seen a dirt road. Through the driveway cam, I counted heads. There was Chad, Becca's husband of 6 months, emerging in white linen pants. White linen at a coastal inn in Maine in September. Oh, sweet summer child. The tribe emerged like a flock of exotic birds. Maya, the photographer, with a camera that cost more than my truck. Skylar and Jordan, influencer friends from LA, both wearing heels that sank immediately into the gravel. Liam, the brand strategist, who looked like he'd be sick if he got salt water on his loafers. And 3 assistants, names I never bothered to learn, carrying cases of equipment like Sherpas. Becca had barely stepped from the car before she was filming. Okay, tribe, we have arrived at my childhood oasis. My mom's been hiding this gem. Total fixer-upper vibes, but so much potential. Fixer-upper vibes. I'd spent 5 years and every penny of Tom's life insurance making it perfect. But I didn't let my jaw clench. I just adjusted the camera angle. They found the key under the ceramic loon on the porch, Tom's hiding spot. The moment Becca pushed open the front door, the magic began. The scream that erupted from Maya could have shattered crystal in 3 counties. Horatio had positioned himself perfectly in the bridal suite doorway, tail swishing, that one milky eye staring directly at her lens. "Is that a goat?" Skylar shrieked, pressing herself against the wainscoting. Horatio, offended by such familiarity, promptly headbutted the Louis Vuitton duffel at Chad's feet. It toppled like a defeated soldier. "Mom!" Becca's voice came through my phone, tinny and panicked. "There's a goat in the bridal suite." "What?" I gasped, clutching my chest, even though she couldn't see me. Carol had to cover her mouth to stop from laughing. "That's impossible! He must have gotten through the dog door." "The dog door? Mom, we don't have a dog." "We do now. Rescued him last month. Haven't gotten around to training him. I'm so sorry. I'm in Portland for a dental appointment. My crowns, you know. I'll be back Sunday evening." "Sunday? Mom, you can't." "Oh, the dentist's calling me in. Love you." And I hung up and turned the phone to silent. Carol and I clinked mugs as we watched the chaos unfold. The next 3 hours were better than any reality show. They tried to lure Horatio out with organic granola from Skylar's luggage. He ate it, then ate the packaging. Chad attempted to grab his collar, but Horatio had opinions about being touched by strangers, expressed through a well-timed kick that sent Chad's Gucci loafers sailing into the lobby. Meanwhile, the chickens, Thelma, Louise, Beyoncé, and the rest of my 12-bird flock had discovered the content studio in room 3. Becca had set up her backdrop, her diffuser, her carefully arranged seashell collection. The chickens rearranged it. With their feet. And their digestion. "This is insane," Liam muttered, trying to get a phone signal in the lobby. "This place is like a Faraday cage." Little did he know I'd had Jake install signal blockers behind the original wallpaper. Guests were encouraged to unplug. By 8 p.m., they'd managed to herd Horatio onto the back deck using a trail of gluten-free crackers, but couldn't figure out how to get him down the steps to the pasture. The goat, clever thing that he was, had discovered the outdoor furniture cushions and was having a delightful time tearing them apart. "We're not farmers," Jordan wailed, mascara from yesterday streaking down her cheeks. "This is insane." "Just ignore him," Becca commanded, trying to maintain authority. "We'll go to town for dinner." Scott's phone GPS helpfully informed them that the nearest restaurant was 43 minutes away. One way. The nearest Starbucks? 2 hours. The nearest Uber? Bless their hearts, they tried to call one. "I found instant coffee in the pantry," Maya announced, holding up the jar of decaf I'd left prominently displayed. They wouldn't find the real coffee I'd hidden behind the ancient canned clams until much later, if at all. Meanwhile, the goat had somehow gotten back inside while they were arguing about transportation. He'd discovered Becca's carefully curated charcuterie board and was enthusiastically eating the $150 worth of imported cheese. The organic grapes from Whole Foods were scattered across the original hardwood like confetti. Chad found the emergency supplies in the pantry: canned beans, pilot crackers, powdered milk. The same supplies Tom and I had lived on for a week during the '98 ice storm. But for this crowd, it might as well have been prison food. "I can't believe your mother lives like this," Skylar said, loud enough for the kitchen camera to pick up. "No wonder Tom died. He probably wanted to escape this hellhole." Carol's hand squeezed mine. She knew how much Tom had loved this place, how he'd drawn sketches of the porch edition on napkins during chemo, making me promise to finish it even if he couldn't. "That bitch," Carol muttered. "No," I said, watching Maya try to shoo Horatio from the lobby. "Horatio's handling this beautifully." As if on cue, the goat appeared in the background of the kitchen feed, lifted his tail, and deposited his opinion of Skylar directly behind her white designer sneakers. When she stepped backward, the squelch was audible even through the computer speakers. The screaming started all over again. By midnight, they'd all retreated to their assigned rooms. The guest wing cameras showed them huddled under their inadequate wool blankets, still in their clothes because their luggage was either goat-damaged or still in the cars, too afraid to go back outside where Horatio might be lurking. The automatic seagull alarm I'd installed in the attic, the kind fishermen use to scare birds from their boats, was set for 4:30 a.m. The speakers were marine-grade, waterproof, and deafening. "Should we order more pastries?" Carol asked, already reaching for her phone. "We're going to need sustenance for tomorrow's show." "Absolutely," I said, watching Becca pace her room, gesturing wildly at Chad. "And maybe some of that good cheese, the kind Horatio likes." Through the cameras, I could see Becca pull out her laptop, probably trying to find a hotel or figure out how to call a large animal removal service. But without Wi-Fi, that expensive MacBook was just a very pretty paperweight. I smiled, thinking of the note I'd left in the kitchen, hidden under the coffee maker they'd eventually find in the morning. "Welcome to authentic Maine life. Remember, early to bed, early to rise. Seagulls start at 4:30. Feeding time is 5 a.m. Enjoy your stay. Mom." Tomorrow they'd discover the task board I'd prepared, complete with shucking oysters, hauling traps, and repairing the dock I'd strategically weakened near the lobster pound. But tonight I would sleep in soft sheets while my daughter learned what Tom always tried to teach her. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned. Usually with calloused hands and salty hair. But the weekend was just the beginning, because on day 3, something happened that even I hadn't planned. The fishing fleet arrived, and they brought with them a tradition that would change everything. The blessing of the fleet. And trust me, my dear, blessing is a very flexible word in Maine. They left Monday morning in a caravan of quieter Teslas. Becca didn't look back. Chad drove, his jaw set, his white linen pants long abandoned for the emergency sweatpants I'd left in the mudroom, Tom's old ones, still smelling faintly of wood smoke. The tribe followed, their Instagram tags deleted, their ring lights shattered, their illusions of authenticity ground into the gravel by goat hooves. The inn was silent again, just the way I liked it. So why did it feel so hollow? I spent that first week back in the rhythm of the place. Morning coffee on the porch, watching the mist burn off the cove, feeding Horatio, who seemed disappointed his playmates had left, collecting eggs from the chickens, who had returned to their coop with the smug satisfaction of a job well done. But every time I passed room 3, the content studio, I saw Becca's shattered backdrop. The shells she'd arranged so carefully, now scattered. The diffuser, knocked over by Beyoncé the chicken. A single false eyelash glued to the nightstand by goat saliva. I left it all there. A monument. The letters started arriving on day 37, postmarked from Narragansett Bay. Actual letters written in Becca's cramped hand, the handwriting I'd taught her at this very kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration. Mom, the first one read, I scrubbed rocks covered in oil today for 9 hours. A veteran named Rosa, she's my team leader, told me I have soft hands and a hard head. She wasn't complimenting me. I tried to explain about the influencer thing. She said, Honey, influence is what you do, not what you post. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it into Tom's journal, the one he'd kept during his last year, when the chemo made his handwriting shaky, but his spirit stubborn. The second letter came on day 81. I met a park ranger. Her name is Alex. She asked me why I'm really here. I showed her your letter. She said, Your mom's got spine. Do you? I didn't know how to answer, so I just started working. Turns out, there's a lot of work to do. Alex. I liked the sound of her. Becca stopped posting on Instagram. Not a single update for 6 months. Her final post, left up like a tombstone, was a photo I'd seen before. Her hands, the ones Rosa called soft, now calloused and bleeding, holding a baby sea turtle. The caption read, This is what influencing really means. Mom, if you see this, I'm sorry for everything. I'm learning. Slowly. Slowly is better than never. On day 127, a package arrived. Not a letter, a legal document. I opened it with shaking hands, expecting power of attorney papers, a lawsuit, something weaponized, the way Beckett had always fought. Instead, I found a conservation easement. She'd spent 6 months working with the Rhode Island Land Trust. It protected the Sea Bridge's coastline forever. No development, no subdivision, no beach clubs turning our cove into a backdrop. The note attached said, Mom, I'm not asking for the inn. I'm asking for a seat at the table, if you'll have me. I stared at those words for an hour, the inn quiet around me, Tom's ghost in the walls. Then I picked up the phone. Carol, it's time, but this time I won't be watching from Portland. She arrived 3 weeks later, alone. No Alex, no tribe. Just a duffel bag and Tom's old tool belt. "I thought I'd fix the west porch," she said, "the way Dad taught me, if you'll show me how." What happened next wasn't a reunion. It was a reckoning, and it started with a manual. 300 pages written in Tom's handwriting, detailing every single system he'd built. She had to find it first, in the attic, under 500 pounds of insulation I'd had Jake install, just as I'd planned. Sometimes the best teachers aren't people. They're 300 pages of instructions written by a man who loved his work more than his comfort. And sometimes the best students are the ones who realize they have to read every single word. Becca arrived on a Tuesday, not the Friday the tribe had arrived. She was learning that timing matters, that showing up when you say you will is its own language of respect. She stepped from her car wearing Tom's old work boots, the ones I'd kept in the mudroom, still caked with the last clay he'd ever dug. They were 3 sizes too big. She'd stuffed the toes with newspaper. "Mom," she said, not hugging me, not yet. "I brought a copy of the easement, signed, permanent. I thought you should have it for your records." I took it. We stood in the driveway, Horatio watching from the fence line like a skeptical judge. "You're smaller than I remember," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Your presence. You're taking up less space. It's nice." It was the first honest thing I'd said to her in years. I gave her the manual that night, Tom's 3-volume life's work. "Bedtime reading," I said. "Starts in the attic." She climbed the stairs, the bootlaces slapping, and I heard her gasp when she saw the stacks. 500 pounds of insulation, just as I'd arranged with Jake. The manual is in there, somewhere. She didn't complain, just started moving it, one bat at a time. Alex arrived on day 4. She didn't knock, just walked in with a toolbox, introduced herself to Horatio, and started helping. No permission asked, no apologies offered. When Becca came down for water, Alex just handed her a level. "Your mom says you're rebuilding the porch. This will help." I watched them work together from the kitchen window. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of shared effort, of calluses forming, of mistakes being made and corrected without commentary. "She's a keeper," Carol said over the phone. "She's not mine to keep," I corrected. "No," Carol agreed, "but she's Becca's to earn, and she's doing the work." The wedding was simple. October, in the barn. Becca wore Tom's grandmother's dress. I'd kept it in tissue paper for decades. Alex wore a suit that smelled of pine and sea air and something I couldn't name, but recognized as honest work. They wrote their own vows. Becca's included a promise to muck stalls before checking emails, and Alex promised to love the work, not just the worker. I stood in the back, holding the easement papers, watching my daughter marry a woman who knew her. Really knew her, because she showed up, because she'd done the work. The baby news came at the reception, under the fairy lights strung around the very porch Becca once mocked. "We're having a girl," Becca whispered, "due in summer. We want to name her Tom, Thomasina, Tommy." I kissed them both, this child I taught through llamas, well, goats, and the woman who taught her through rocks and sea turtles. "I'll teach her to swim in the cove where Tom proposed," I whispered. "She'll chase chickens before she walks, and she'll know that love is spelled Time and WORK." That night, I finally gave Becca Tom's last letter. She read it by flashlight in the barn. I heard her crying. Good tears, the kind that build something. The manual had one final entry, dated 3 days before he died. I knew what it said because I'd read it 1,000 times, but Becca needed to find it herself. And when she did, when she turned that last page and saw his final words to her, she came to me with a question I wasn't expecting. One that changed everything. She asked, "Mom, what if I'm not done learning?" I smiled. "Good. Neither am I. That's the whole point of building something that will outlive you." The manual's last entry was dated June 14th, 3 days before Tom coded in our bedroom. Becca found it at midnight, after everyone had gone to bed, her hands black with axle grease from the porch work. She brought it to me, the page trembling. "Dad wrote me a letter," she said. Not a question, a fact she was still absorbing. "I know," I said. "I kept it until you were ready." She read it aloud there in the kitchen, Tom's words filling the space he'd left empty. "Rebecca," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it to see you understand. And that's okay, because the thing about building something, truly building it, not just owning it, is that you have to be willing to let it break you open. The inn will do that to you if you let it, or it will break you down if you fight it. Your mother knows the difference. Listen to her." She folded it into the easement. "I want to add something," she said. "A clause. The mechanical bull clause, named after the actual mechanical bull old Salty had in his barn, which Becca now had to ride every August during the technology-free weekend for local teens, was simple. The Sea Bridge would host, in perpetuity, a group of kids who needed to learn that work isn't content, that the tide doesn't wait for good lighting, that goats have opinions and those opinions matter. Becca would teach them marine conservation using only manual tools. Alex would teach them that love is measured in calloused palms. And I would watch from the porch, holding my grandson, remembering that sometimes the best inheritance isn't what you leave behind, but what you refuse to give away. 5 years later, the clause is law. Tommy runs through the lobby, chased by Horatio's great-grandkid. Becca's Instagram is gone, replaced by the inn's website, full of foggy mornings and bloody knuckles. Alex runs the conservation program. They host 200 volunteers a year. And me? I sit on the porch with my coffee, watching my daughter, my real daughter, teach a 16-year-old how to shuck an oyster without losing a finger. She's patient, she's present, she's earned. If you're watching this and you've ever been told you're too much, too stubborn, too protective, too unwilling to compromise your peace, remember Margaret. Remember that setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's the highest form of love, for yourself, for your legacy, and sometimes for the child who needs to learn the hard way. Now, I need your help. In the comments below, rate my response from 0 to 10 and tell me, what would you have done? Did I go too far? Not far enough? Share this with a woman in your life who needs permission to defend her sanctuary. Subscribe for more stories of women who built something beautiful and refused to let anyone steal it. This is Maggie, signing off from Seabridge. The coffee's on, the porch is waiting, and the bull? Well, the bull is always ready. Tommy's first word was goat, by the way. Best compliment I've ever received.